Going on, everybody? It's Key Time coming back with another one to talk about my NBA season preview prediction show. And before I get into all of the NBA teams, there was a lot of player movement throughout the offseason. We got Klay Thompson going to Dallas. Then we have Paul George going to Philadelphia. Then we got Peyton Pritchard staying where he's beloved at in Boston, and we have a few other players going to. We had a few other players going to various cities. We even got Russell Westbrook. Do y'all know Russell Westbrook has been in the NBA for 16 years? No, excuse me, 17 years. And it doesn't even seem like that. My time flies when you are having fun. So, to all of the teams, this season is obviously chances of a repeat for the Boston Celtics. If you look at their roster, they're bringing back most of their players from last season with a couple of additions. So, out of Boston in the East, and I'm gonna tell y'all who has a legitimate shot at coming close to competing with Boston. I don't think nobody is going to beat the Boston Celtics in a 7 game series, but they can give them competition. I believe that the the New York Knicks can give the Celtics some great competition in a playoff series. I could see that series going 6 or 7 games with the Celtics winning a game 6 or a game 7 on their home floor. Also, the 76ers, they can pretty much be a team, a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the Celtics. But outside of, and I'm going to give you the teams that have a legitimate shot at making the playoffs. And I'm going to start right now. Obviously, we know the Celtics are going to make the playoffs outright. Then you have the New York Knicks that can make the playoffs. Philadelphia 76ers, the Toronto Raptors, Cleveland Cavaliers, Indiana Pacers, Milwaukee Bucks, possibly, and I do mean possibly, the Detroit Pistons. Possibly. Possibly the Detroit Pistons. Miami Heat, they always are going to be in the playoffs no matter who is on that roster. Jimmy Butler is coming back for the Miami Heat. The Atlanta Hawks, they can obviously sneak in there. Maybe not get into the playoffs, but at least get into the play-in tournament come April. So those are all of the teams in the East that I have making it to the playoffs. Now, as far as the West, we already know who is in the West: the Warriors, Clippers, the Lakers, the Phoenix Suns, Sacramento Kings, Dallas Mavericks, Houston Rockets, Memphis Grizzlies, New Orleans Saints, San Antonio Spurs, Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, Oklahoma City Thunder, Portland Trailblazers, and the Utah Jazz. Out of this list, I see about 10 or 12 teams that have a shot at it. Golden State Warriors, obviously they are a wild card this year. They'll be a wild card. They'll make it to the play-in tournament, but can they make it to the playoffs? It remains to be seen. LA Clippers, LA Clippers, this year after year. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year. And it's just they always come up short. So I'm not gonna say that the Clippers are gonna make it to the Clippers will make it to the playoffs, but I got to see them get past the second round in order to say that yeah, they are a championship contending team, because over the last, I'll say, 12 years, they've had good teams, but they haven't been able to get past the second round of the playoffs. And as far as the Lakers, now we already know that the Lakers, they already gonna have a target on their back this season with being led by LeBron James, his son, Bronny James, coming on the team and being a part of the fold. Now, there's one thing that I want to say about the Lakers and Bronny James. Now, now it's the preseason, so I am not gonna overreact to a bunch of preseason games that don't mean nothing. So, one thing about Bronny, he's still learning the game, but it is a little bit concerning to be out there on the floor playing 10 plus minutes and you still having point totals in single digits. So the regular season will start in a week. We will see what JJ Redick and the Lakers coaching staff, what they will do when it comes to Bronny James. But I believe Bronny James, he is gonna come off the bench because with LeBron is gonna be a starter no matter what. No, even though he's about to turn 40 in a matter of weeks, it still don't matter. LeBron is still gonna be a starter. He might not be the bell cow for the Lakers this season. It might be Anthony Davis, then LeBron. But LeBron, he is still gonna be out there in the starting lineup. And can the Lakers do more? Here's one question. Here's one question and one storyline going into the season that the Lakers need to answer. Can they beat the Denver Nuggets? Because the last 2-3 years, they've only beat the Denver Nuggets once in the last 13 games. And that is unfathomable to me because the Lakers, we all know throughout their history, they have been a team that can hang with contending teams, that can hang with teams that are even better than them and make it a playoff series or make the game a little bit more competitive than what it is. But since they've played the Denver Nuggets the last 13 times, they've just been blowing them all off the floor. And let me tell you, the Lakers have had a lead in all 13 games in one point. They just haven't been able to finish here, finish there. And then you have this, which leads to my next point. The Denver Nuggets. That is a team out in the West that can stretch you out all over the court. They will make you defend the 4 lines and 94 feet. The Denver Nuggets are going to be a team that is going to be reckoned with, a force to be reckoned with. Also, the Minnesota Timberwolves ain't going anywhere. OKC Thunder ain't going anywhere. Also, another team that is on the rise, Houston Rockets, they ain't going anywhere. Memphis Grizzlies, we already know that they still going to be in it. The New Orleans Pelicans, led by Zion Williamson, they are going to have a chance to make some noise this year. And with the New Orleans Pelicans, can they have a better bench this year? Because the last 3 years, their bench has been putrid. So, and I'm not going to leave the Dallas Mavericks out because they are the defending reigning Western Conference champion. They still have their lineup intact and they still can get back to the NBA Finals. Now, do I believe Dallas is going to get back to the NBA Finals? They might, but it is going to be a rough road ahead because you still got Denver out there. You still got Minnesota, OKC. Then you have Golden State. Then you have the Phoenix Suns. Although with the Phoenix Suns, they still don't have enough defense. They have all these offensive players, but they don't have a bench and they don't have defense, and that is what's going to be their downfall. The Phoenix Suns, they are not going to get very far in the playoffs again. They're not going to get very far in the playoffs. Sacramento Kings, the last couple years, they've been teetering in the right direction. Now this is their third year with this coaching regime, with this head coaching regime and these players. They need to take the next step and get further in the playoffs. Last year, they didn't make it to the playoffs. They only made it to the play-in tournament and lost in the play-in tournament. So, as far as the Phoenix Suns and Sacramento Kings, both of these teams, they in the same boat. They want to play deep into the playoffs in April, May, and if they are lucky to get into June. But when it comes to those teams, they need better bench production because the Phoenix Suns last season was 30th in bench production, and the Sacramento Kings was 24th in bench production. You are not going to win very many playoff series, let alone get to the NBA Finals with stats like that when it comes to bench production. The last few teams I'm going to talk about is the Dallas Mavericks, Houston Rockets, and Memphis Grizzlies. Dallas, they are led by Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Houston, they don't have the Houston Rockets. They are still trying to find that bell cow of a player that can really take over a game and go find their own shot. Memphis Grizzlies, they have that in Ja Morant. Let's see if the Memphis Grizzlies can get back to top notch like they were a couple of years ago before all of these injuries and off the court issues with aforementioned Ja Morant started happening. The Memphis Grizzlies, I expect them to be right there in the thick of things. Maybe I could see the Memphis Grizzlies being a top 5, top 6 team in the Western Conference, But there are always other teams that are surprising. Now the Utah Jazz, I don't expect nothing from the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, their roster is full of a bunch of average players that can't do nothing, that can't take over a game. I'm looking at their roster right now, and most of these guys, for their careers, they have averaged 17 to about 18 points. That's all. So the bottom of the barrel, I'm going to get to the bottom of the barrel teams in the NBA this season. Bottom of the barrel teams is going to be Utah Jazz, Washington Wizards, and I got a couple more teams, Chicago Bears, and I believe maybe, just maybe, the San Antonio Spurs. Now, this is Victor Wembanyama's second year, so time to see a little bit improvement. Last season he came in, he was just going through the motions, trying to get a feel for the NBA. Now he's got a year up under his belt, and it's time for him to take over the NBA and be one of those leading young guys just coming out of, well, not coming out of college, but coming from France and leading one of the teams in the NBA to the playoffs. Because the San Antonio Spurs, they have a good enough roster to at least make it to the play-in tournament this year. They do. Led by Victor Wembanyama, I believe that the San Antonio Spurs can make it to the play-in tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised if we come back in the middle of March and see where the San Antonio Spurs have a chance at making the playoffs. So, bottom of the barrel teams again are Washington Wizards, Utah Jazz, not the Sacramento Kings, the Chicago Bulls, and maybe the San Antonio Spurs. I'm saying that playoff expectations, I'm setting playoff expectations for the San Antonio Spurs just to get to the play-in tournament, but obviously it may not happen. So I'm just being optimistic about the San Antonio Spurs. But the first three teams I said, they might be out of the playoff chase by the time we get to Christmas. Because with the Chicago Bulls, their roster is below average, is decent to below average. I mean, outside of Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball, what else you gonna get on offense? You're not gonna get much. And for the Washington Wizards, same exact thing. You're not gonna get much offense from these players. Washington Wizards, they are gonna be in a lot of blowouts. They're gonna be in a lot of blowouts. And when you see the Washington Wizards roster, who can really take over a game on the Washington Wizards roster? Nobody. Nobody can take over a game on the Washington Wizards roster. That's why I said that this is going to be a bad season for them. It's not going to be a competitive season. And the Detroit Pistons, they are a young up and coming team. They have a new coach. I think that they did Monty Williams wrong because you signed him for 5 years and you know that the team that you had wasn't going to be good in year one. Wasn't. But I can say for the Detroit Pistons, they have a couple of guys that can take over a game. Malik Beasley, Cade Cunningham, Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, Tim Hardaway Jr., ever since he left the New York Knicks, he has been a shell of himself. So hopefully, coming to Detroit, a team that doesn't have many expectations as of right now, maybe he can come to Detroit and ball out. But outside of that, I don't see much happening with the Detroit Pistons. Maybe, just maybe, they can reach the play-in tournament and maybe give their fans something to cheer about going into next season. But after all of that, I just don't see nothing that interests me with the Detroit Pistons because we know that this is going to be a rebuilding year. And for the Trailblazers, it is going to be a rebuilding year because there's nobody on the Portland Trailblazers roster that can take over a game. So these four teams have the same thing in common. Before I end the show, these four teams have the same thing in common. The Utah Jazz, Portland Trailblazers, Chicago Bears, Washington Wizards have the same exact thing in common. They don't have a bell cow scorer and a guy that can take over the game and find his own shot when the game is close, coming down the stretch, and when you need a timely basket to win a game. These four teams just do not have it. So, with that, those are my outlooks and predictions to the 2024-25 NBA season. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and other content. And remember one last thing, the key is always on time.